Hey there, beer tubers! Welcome back to Maxwell Star and the rest of the crew on tonight's Beer Analysis 101 for a Valentine's Day hot date with a redhead. Tonight, we're taking a look at Red Racer's IPA. Let's look at that can. 6.5% ABV, India Pale Ale. First of all, before we get into the beer history, let's introduce the panel. Tonight, we've got the star of They Must Be Destroyed on Sight's podcast. Got Lee. How you doing tonight, sir?
Good. Ready to put this redhead in my mouth.
Right on. Of course, yeah, don't need to tell you twice. Next over, we've got Drinking in Canada. Guy, how are you tonight, sir?
It's good. Good to be here. I like IPAs.
You like IPAs? That's nice. You like redheads too, don't you?
Yeah, matching pants.
Oh God, Jesus, put that away. We'll end up getting a flag against us or something.
Not nude. Stay forward.
Anyway, next over, if he's still there, grabbing his. What are you grabbing, Chris? Got on the 10th beer review, or
yeah. Thanks for having me. I was just grabbing a piece of paper. I'm going to grab a pen to keep scores tonight. So
okay, cool.
That's what that was for. And thanks for having me on the program. And yeah, I'm looking forward to drinking this IPA.
Of course, anytime you get the beer, man. And moving it along, of course, last but certainly not the least dirty-minded. Hey, Greg, how are you tonight, sir?
I'm doing fine, Nick. I'm enjoying this Valentine's Day. As you can see, I've got myself some flowers.
Oh, she gave you flowers.
They smell delicious.
Nice.
I'm ready to have this IPA. I'm also not wearing pants, but I'm not going to show you because that would be incredibly unprofessional.
Thank you for that. I love you. Anyway, moving right along, let's dip into the history of Central City and their Red Racer IPA. So, Central City Brewing was founded in 2003 by Daryl Frost and opened as the Central City craft brew pub inside the Central City Shopping Center in downtown Surrey, BC. So there you have it. Central City is named after a shopping mall. Daryl Frost previously had over 30 years of restaurant management experience, bringing with him brewmaster Gary Lohan, and also brought years of brewing experience to Central City, having previously worked at Whistler Brewing Co. and Okanagan Springs. Their IPA quickly became one of their most successful beers, and was given the logo based on a cartoon drawing by a local artist from the 1960s of a Betty Page-like redheaded bombshell riding a Red Racer bicycle. So the bike is actually what's called Red Racer, not the girl. The Central City started canning their beer in 2005 in order to ship it throughout BC and beyond. Eventually, Central City won Brewery of the Year at the Canadian Brewing Awards in 2010 and 2012. 2013, they finally opened up a 25,000 hectoliter brewing facility that can produce 1.5 million liters annually, and increasing distribution across Canada and some parts of the U.S. And plans to expand to 100,000 hectoliter by year 5 from 2013. So that's technically this year. I haven't read if they plan to do that or not, but hey, that's pretty cool. Unfortunately, though, for Central City, they lost a trademark dispute with Bear Republic in the States for their for their Racer 5 IPA and Red Rocket beers, leading to Red Racer being renamed Red Betty in the States. So, about the beer, Red Racer is a 6.5% ABV Northwest style, American style IPA, weighing it at 80 IBUs, and hopped with Magnum, Centennial, Amarillo, and Simcoe, with Maris Otter malt as part of the grain bill. They do make a wide range of other beers. Actually, I've got 3 of the other ones in my Star Selection craft pack that I picked up tonight at the NB Liquor Store, which includes their India Session Ale. There's their Pilsner, one of their special IPAs, which is their Super Solar IPA. I'll crack that open later tonight. They also make a pale ale, a copper ale, a wit beer. They have specialty beers like Thor's Hammer Barley Wine, which is one of the finest barley wines that you can get in Canada, as well as they also even make distilled spirits such as Queensborough Gin, Seraph Vodka, and Lohan McKinnon Single Malt Whiskey. I'd really like to try that. All right. So now that we've blabbed on about the beer enough, let's take a look over at the comments section. Who wants to read them? Lee?
Yeah, I'll get to it here.
Cool.
Okay. Chase Westcott says he'll be drinking a 2016 vintage of Kentucky Bastard by Nickelbrook tonight. And then he says, "I'm just saying." Craig from Kent Beer Review says, "I'm quote unquote nicking the thumbnail tonight." So he's gonna be stealing that. Average Joe's in the comments. Raining on Your Parade is in here. He says, "A couple years ago, I first saw some Central City beers hit the shelf, so I thought I would have no problem getting this beer. Turns out Maine does not carry Central City anymore." I think we'll talk a little bit about some of their distribution problems here as we go along. Joe says it's like a lot of markets. Raining on Your Parade, they showed up here in 2015-16. Now it's hit or miss. Good luck finding the hop forward beers fresh as well. Raining on Your Parade says, "But I got a Lagunitas Undercover Shutdown Ale Double IPA, 9.7% ABV to ease the pain." Let's see. And basically, Average Joe says, "Hopefully this week Nick doesn't ruin the show with his lack of professionalism." So there we go.
Oh, I know about professionalism anyway. Oh.
Professionalism means you're the best at what you're doing. So therefore, the word he's using is conservative.
What the hell?
So
whatever Guy said, I agree.
I know you're from Ottawa and all.
So,
all right. Well, now that we've read all the comments, I imagine there's going to be more by now. But let's talk to Lee. What's your history with a Red Racer? I know you've had it before several times, and you like redheads.
So way back when I first got it, it wasn't available to me. I got it from our mutual acquaintance, Dale, Brew by Me, sent me. It was nice enough to send me a can about 6 years ago, I think it was. And I immediately loved it. I just fell in love with it. Of course, yes. The joke always that Lee and his redheads. So obviously he likes this can. But yeah, I like the design. I like the retro kind of design on it. I like just how this beer is sort of built, how it's put together. It's a much more well balanced kind of IPA I found as I was getting into it. But yeah, that's sort of my history of it. I got it from Dale, and after a while, it started to become available to us in the NSLC, and I think I'll get into more of that when we actually do the review and talk about it. It's sort of a checkered past, but yeah, it's one I buy every once in a while when I'm in a mood for a more kind of laid back, but like really kind of, I think, world-class put together kind of IPA. And I'll leave it at that for now, I guess.
Right on. Guy, I know you're a man of few words, sometimes of many words, and sometimes words that we don't understand, but I want to hear what your words are on this beer. You've had this before.
I think I only started having the beer while I was doing reviews, and it got me happy in the pants, burnt the pants off, so I kept on buying it because I love pine, and pine makes me happy in the pants.
Pine?
No more pants.
Pine takes my pants off. Oh, sorry, professional.
So we'll go into more details later, but yeah, that's my story.
Your pants are already off, so. And we've got Chris over there hiding his face, and he's next. Hey, Chris, what's your history?
Nick, get your shit together, okay?
All right.
Anyway, I've had this beer once before, and I remember it. Like, it wasn't even that long ago, and when I did drink it, I think it was during a BDU. And I was like, "Oh, this is super sweet." And then Joe came in and said, "What's the date of that can?" And I said, "Whatever the date was." And he goes, "Yeah, that can's pretty old. You're getting all malt." So I'm like, "Oh, okay. This is why it's not so good." But actually, pretty funny as I do recall now, I didn't mind it sweet like that. I have a fresh can here, even though I thought it wasn't. But we were looking at the bottom dates earlier before we started. And yeah, so we'll talk about all that stuff later. That's my history on this. I've had one can before. It was an old can, and yeah, that's it.
Well, you got a better chance to take a fresh take on this one now, I guess.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah.
And Greg, what's your take on Red Racer? What's your history?
Nick, before I start, I just want to say how sorry I am that you had to you had somebody steal stuff from you, and I'm just hoping you can get back on your feet as soon as possible because you work hard and it's not fair that people just steal your stuff.
It's just
Secondly, my history with this beer probably goes back to about 2012. It's one of the first IPAs I had back when, even in the great province of Ontario, in the city of Toronto, there was almost no IPAs you could get regularly. I think you could get Mad Tom and you could get Smash Mom Atomic, but that had really crappy distribution, and a lot of LCBOs didn't carry it. Mad Tom you could pretty much get everywhere. But this you could also get just about it. Well, not everywhere, but it was quite common, so I tried it back then. I've pretty much always liked it. The first while I had it, when I was still very young into my beer journey, I loved it. It was basically like an easy 9 out of 10 plus for me. Through the years, I've liked it less, but it's still a great IPA. It's just more probably in the high 7, low 8 range for me, which is still very good. I do find my can is also fairly fresh. I do find it actually to be a little on the sweet side. I don't remember it being that way the last time I had it, but it's probably been at least a year since I've had it. So I don't know if that has anything to do. I mean, mine was bottled in December, so I wouldn't imagine the hops would drop off that quickly. Maybe I just don't notice the bitterness all that much anymore. But, to me, this is basically kind of perhaps not a perfect one, but it's always been sort of a great West Coast style IPA, and I still quite enjoy it. And I look forward to enjoying it tonight with all of you, my friends.
And how? All right, so my personal history with this thing is I think it was definitely in 2012, but I'm trying to remember who sent it to me. I think Jesse had gotten it from Heist Almighty on my channel, had gotten it from a friend of his in Ontario. It was either a friend or his uncle, but he scored a can from Ontario when Red Racer had kind of momentarily expanded production into or at least delivered a batch into the LCBOs that year. And we had it. I don't think it was like super fresh, but we did find it extremely tasty. And at the time, I called it one of the best IPAs in Canada. And I've had it numerous times since, and I don't know. Maybe I'm just getting used to it, or have had better IPAs, but it's still top notch. But I don't know. I guess that's what I have to say for the history side of things. Is just that I've had it before. I've had it numerous times now that it's regularly available here, and I tend to like their beers. So yeah. So moving right back to the comments. Let's see what everybody's bitching about in there, especially Joe.
Okay. Jace Westcott wants to know what the beer is next week. We'll get to that. Don't worry. Craig from Camp Beer Reviews says, been lucky enough to have this back in 2016. Fred bought a can back to me. What I remember is it was a fantastic beer. And Greg and Guy are in the comments saying nonsense. So I'm not even going to read that stuff because we're professionals.
Conservative.
Yeah, and that's all there is to it.
I'm not. Suck it.
That really all the comments?
That's it so far, yeah.
Wow. Other than Reading Parade saying Nick is a god, so thank you.
Yeah, I avoided that one too because we don't want any fiction on this chat.
Oh, I see. All right, so back over to anybody ready to give their ratings.
Yeah.
All right.
Let me go.
So
we were sort of hinting that some of us might have had older than usual cans tonight and in the past. One of the biggest problems with Central City and their stuff is it seems to slowly get across the country, very fucking slowly. Like even in Ontario, there's been examples of it being 3 to 4 months old, something around those lines. We were trying to decipher the codes on the can. I got this one as Nick did from the 4-pack, the selection pack that they have, which is $14.99, I think, on clearance in the NSLC right now. How much did you pay for yours, Nick?
You know what? I actually don't know. They were just unpacking them at my store, and I was like, "Ooh, Red Racer! It's got to be fresher than what I got at home." So
Yeah,
I bought the 4-pack.
Yeah,
they didn't give me a receipt. I just paid with a gift card, and
Oh, okay. Well,
Yes, I can look. It's sorry for being unprofessional, Joe.
So I was able to buy singles for the longest time, but they were about $3.95 a single can. The 4-pack was 14 something, and that was on clearance in my SLC because it's been sitting there a while. Best I can guess by what we were saying here with the codes on the back or on the bottom of the can, that this was probably packaged in late June of last year. So it's been sitting for a while. When it does start to fade, it does get very malt forward. But the Simcoe in this is fairly strong. So you can still get that sort of piney quality, but it almost comes out like kind of a spruce beer almost to a certain degree, because you're starting to get a lot of that caramelly molasses malt flavor, and then just a lot of that pine in the background still lingering. All the other sort of hops in this are kind of faded. So, I mean, if I was just to rate this can right now, it'd probably be lesser than what I gave it when I first did a review. And the cans I had that were a couple months old or whatever that had found their way to Nova Scotia, a lot of them still retained their sort of hop strength, so they were still sort of like the same score for me. It's a real hit or miss kind of thing with Red Racer, depending on when you get it. But yeah, I don't think the quality's necessarily gone down all that much. I think it's a solid IPA. I think it's a solid example of a West Coast style, and it's not too bombastic. It's not too big. It's just very well balanced. It's for the pine lovers, that side of things. So if you're not into Simcoe hops, you're probably going to want to poo-poo on this one. But I'd still say this is just as a solid representation of the style. It's probably going to be a 9 for me. And just personal enjoyment, I'd still sit it at about a 8.5. Like, this is something I can just dig into at any time. I'm not a big fan, I think I've alluded to, of some of the more super bitter IPAs and some of the more fancy pants IPAs and trendy IPAs that are out there. I like more of a solid, kind of more traditional craft IPA from years past. So Red Racer works in that for me.
Nice. And the color, of course, the can helps, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that at least bumps it up 3 points.
Guy, what's your take?
You said price, so here's like $3 a can.
Oh, yeah?
I guess. Yeah, this one is wetter than I remember, but at least at the end, it's still got the big pine taste, and I just love that. And we got a big juicy grape of frutte. So still overall score, I'm still gonna stick around like 8.5 out of 10 for me.
Right on.
What about style there, Guy?
Yeah, style.
Same, 8.5.
Okay.
All right.
That's my style.
It's just how he rolls. Chris, what's your take? You like it any better?
I found that I'm starting to like the Northeastern and the New England style IPAs a little bit better than the West Coast style IPAs. You guys should probably figure that out. I'm not a big pine junkie, and that's all I'm getting out of this. It's a pretty fresh can. I think it's mine was canned, I think, in sometime in November. So it's not bad. Little bit of sweetness, sure. It's actually warming up and it's getting worse for me. Again, like I said, it's piney. It's not my favorite not my favorite style, but to rate this on style, it is what it is. It's a West Coast style IPA. It's piney. It's got the right hops in it, and I'm gonna have to go with a style. I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10 for style. Just basically, it is what it is. For personal enjoyment, I'm probably bringing the average all the way down. I'm not a fan of this. I'll be real surprised if I make it through this actual can of Red Racer, but I'm giving this a 6 out of 10 for personal enjoyment. I don't like it. It's it's not the worst thing I've ever had, but it's not a style that I prefer. So that's my personal is a 6 on that.
Wow. All right. And Greg, what's your take?
Well, This is a lot sweeter than I remember it being. I don't know. I have found in the past that this beer has, I don't want to say it too loud because you might be listening. It may have some fat batch variation. I know, shocking. And I don't know because I don't remember this one being quite as sweet. So I'm sort of going to rate a little bit on the can, a little bit of what I remember it being, because this is a very solid IPA. It's very good. I want a little more hop flavor, a little less malt sweetness. So really, I mean, it's for style, it's a 9 out of 10. I mean, it's hard to really argue with it. For personal enjoyment, I mean, ordinarily I'd easily give this a 9 out of 10, at least from previous experiences, but this one's not quite up there for me. It's still an 8. It's still a very solid IPA. It's just not quite in the upper echelon like in the past it has been. But even as it is right now, as it sits in front of me, still something I'd very happily buy a bunch of during the summer and enjoy them. It's $3 a can, which at this point is Ontario. Not bad. It's not unreasonable since a lot of them are going to $3.25 to $4 a can nowadays. So it's not bad. I'd certainly recommend everyone try it. I think it's an excellent example of basically what a West Coast IPA is. A lot of West Coast IPAs now have like a lot of East Coast stuff mixed in where you get a lot more fruit and stuff, which isn't necessarily bad, but this is kind of more of just 101 if you want to kind of get a taste for it. And it's good. I'm quite enjoying it. Chris, send me whatever you have left over and I'll finish it for you.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I guess you could call this the Canadian version of what Pliny the Elder has become in the States to craft beer fans in like California or something. It's like, it was and still is a very great IPA, but now it's kind of gotten to the standard kind of, and people have made beers that are so much better. And, I find that hard to believe when it comes to Pliny, but my memory of Pliny is very shiny compared. And my original memory for Red Racer was very shiny as well. Like I really liked this when I first had it in 2012. I look back at it now and you know what? It's probably tastes exactly the same as it did back then, but my palate, I've just had so many other IPAs since then. And I find I'm almost like, I come to this one, I was like, it's maybe a little too much resin than I really want. And I find that, like Lee was saying, it's really heavy on the Simcoe hops. I find it very pine forward. I get a nice biscuity caramel coming through it. Under that's a little bit of like a grapefruit hops and then floral taste, like a touch of floral and that big lingering resin. But I find almost like the lingering resin rests in the center of the tongue instead of like coating the back of the throat, which is different compared to other lingering resins I've had in IPAs, which might sound weird, but hey, it's me. Overall, I find it a very enjoyable beer. It's one beer that I have gotten numerous times before, have gotten again. I don't think I've ever had a Red Racer that's as bad as what Chris had his first time. But overall, I think it's great. I just think that maybe the bar has been raised for IPAs a little, and this one doesn't quite and you know what? Red Racer is probably really one of the beers in Canada to thank about that. I mean, when you look at it like say, for example, Collective Arts Rhyme and Reason, it's better than this because, but it came after. And would you have Rhyme and Reason without this? Anyway, for the style of IPA, I think it's fairly well done. I'm going to give that an 8.5 out of 10. Personal enjoyment, I'd say 7.5 out of 10. And it's dropped a little off since the last, I reviewed it in 2012. Oh, it was a little gassy. But overall, I still really like Red Racer, and that's become a classic can, and I do hope, wish the company the best. Now, before giving any final thoughts and before we move back to the comments, I'm just kind of curious that maybe we should be stating this. What's your packed on date codes that's written on the bottom of the can? Mine's K3117, which we kind of determined would be October 31st, 17. I'm just kind of curious what everybody else has for a logo. Lee? Or for a packed on date?
Mine says pack F2 F2717, so that should be June 27, 17, if I'm correct. Because we're saying that they tend to drop the I and because it looks too much like an L. So, and basically you're counting the letters. You count the letters, and each letter you go up sequentially is a month in the year. So,
Yeah, minus the I, so it's all the way up to L. And Guy, what's your say? LO917?
Yeah, same as Chris.
Yeah. And Chris is LO917. And what was yours? MO5.
MO517. So assuming they do drop the I, which I strongly suspect they do, that would be December, unless it was bottled the 13th month of last year, in which case, good for them.
Yeah, what is this, like the 13th hour on Labyrinth or something? Anyway, yeah, so we're drinking, he's roughly around the same age, but Lee's got the oldest by far. And
I'm a middle-aged man, what can I say?
Yeah, middle-aged asshole. But
Nick, come on. That's
I'm trying to remember. It was the middle-aged man, loser. Anyway, whatever. Yeah, I think that, it kind of you can almost kind of tell that it's like 2 months old, and none really fully expected that, given NB Liquor's propensity to bringing in beers and then aging it in their warehouse until they decide to put it out the stores. I don't know.
They need a magic fridge.
Nick, we know it's Valentine's Day, but do you have to wipe up on camera?
Yep. Okay. Anyway, to answer your earlier question, Lee, yeah, it was $15.80 for that pack here.
Okay.
And the single cans are $3.75 here.
Yeah, so you get it a little cheaper than us, but so they probably, I think those packs are probably around $16 in Nova Scotia when they're at full price, and so they dropped like $2 off them for discount.
Yeah. Well, you got them on clearance, you said, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And mine are probably 2 months old. I think the rest of my cans, like my can is Super Solar IPA, actually says LO817. So that would kind of make me think November 8th, 17.
Yeah. All my cans in the pack were all the same fucking can on date, by the way.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's K3117, and that one is LO217. So yeah, it would probably be around the same time, early November.
Right.
All right, so let's move back over to the comments, see what people are saying.
All right.
Quite a few.
Let's see. Jace is speaking to himself in the third person. He says Jace is quoting Buffalo Bill on this loving day. Craig from Kim Beer Review says, I bet it was a steal, Nick, in relation to the price. I'll just give a little whackety schmackety do Craig's way there. Jace Westcott says Remus doesn't talk about himself like that. I don't know what's that. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Average Joe says, I think it's a classic example of the style. I thoroughly enjoy it, but it's nothing that blows me away. The same probably can be said for many IPAs that were brewed years ago, at least for me. Yeah, I agree. Peter, the clueless drinker, is in here saying boo. I think he's pretending to be a ghost. Average Joe says, have any of you had the Imperial IPA from Central City that showed up with Red Racer years ago? I enjoyed that too, but it was way sweeter than this one, actually, considering the ABV.
Yeah.
Nope.
Actually, yeah. I've had it a couple times, and actually it's here right now. I could have picked one up tonight, but I got the fresh bottle of Vickers Cross instead.
Yeah. Probably a better move.
Oh, yeah.
Average Joe says 9 out of 10 for style, 8 out of 10 for personal enjoyment for him. The clueless drinker called us sexist pigs. It's true.
Mm-hmm.
We're not only sexist pigs, we're sexy pigs as well.
That's even better.
Yeah,
Long pork.
Okay, the chat moved for me somehow.
Average Joe next.
Jesus. There we go. Average Joe says, I feel like all Canadian craft beer drinkers should have had this beer at least once. It's a classic.
Exactly.
Yeah. Jace Westcott says, I thought it was an Indian motorcycle she was riding. Now I'm less impressed. Hey, I don't care what she's riding. She can be riding anything.
Well, you see pedals on the bike, right?
Yeah, including myself. Rating on your parade says, are you drinking this IPA now, Joe? Joe says, hell no. How about to bust open a Bissell Brothers ROYP? I don't even know what the fuck that is.
Rating on your parade.
Oh, yeah, okay. Duh. If you're gonna fucking just use letters, Joe, you gotta rating on your parade. You gotta make on lowercase. even though Raining on Your Parade doesn't know how to write his name properly either. Average Joe says Chris has all the professionalism, but his palate, on the other hand.
Right? I know.
Joe says, yeah, Raining on Your Parade, my first Bissell Bros beer. The substance, I know it's their flagship, so happy to try it out. Jace Westcott says, Chris, have you tried Juicy Ass by Flying Monkeys? And Chris says no. Raining on Your Parade says Bissell is good but overrated. Chris mentions he should have physics this beer.
Should have,
I guess. It would be a really good New England style IPA then.
It probably just would have made it a little bit smoother. That's
a little bit smoother, yeah. Average Joe says, good point, Nick. Those older IPAs are still good, but craft beers evolved and progressed. Nothing wrong with it. We're still loving these beers, but it's unfair to compare to New England style IPAs. You know, if you think they're the shit. Some people don't. Jace Westcott says that one is under $3.35 a can. It's got a sweet tropical fruit presence.
He's talking about the Juicy Ass.
Juicy Ass? Oh, okay.
Yeah, okay.
Average Joe says, when you take into consideration the new hop strains, brewing techniques, etc., beer has evolved. And Chase Westcott says, besides, who doesn't like a Juicy Ass? Average Joe says 7.5 out of 10, 3.75 out of 5 for Nick. I would have never guessed it.
Fuck you, Joe.
So perfect.
It's all falling into place. Joe says, I enjoyed Juicy Ass, Jace, but it really didn't come off as a New England IPA. We actually get it here in
Western New York.
Western New York now, too, yeah. All these acronyms and shit. It's just throwing me off. Average Joe says, maybe we could just put the date instead of some complex code. Fucking Comcast internet cable, guys. Yeah, that's true. I know what we're thinking here, yeah. Jace Westcott says, oh, nice. I was just pointing it out because it's more like what Chris likes. Clues Drinker says, I really need to write Nick's jokes and references.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
100%.
And Joe says, yeah, he'd probably dig that. Jace Westcott says, I don't remember it having a heavy resin or herbaceous finish. Oh, God. Someone else says herbaceous in this quote-unquote community. Raining on Your Parade says, oh, yeah, Joe, Bissell Substance is the exact same beer as Maine Beer Company Lunch. Clues Drinker says, I certainly have the complexion of a ghost. Still can't sneak into a woman's restrooms, though. And he says sexist pigs wasn't an insult, by the way. I don't think any of us took it that way. We're all honored.
All I heard was sexy pigs.
Fucking love bacon.
Yeah. Jace Westcott says Chris has a baby palate.
I wouldn't. You know what? Hold on a second. I want to rebut on that one. I wouldn't say I have a baby palate. I just would say I have a palate that enjoys certain things and some things I don't enjoy.
I thought you were a beer journeyman palate now.
That's right. He's not a baby. He's a journeyman.
So
he doesn't the respect he deserves.
So he has a palate that likes things like shiny things, loud, noisy things, colorful, pretty things. Not a baby palate.
A baby,
more mature palate. Yeah.
More of a old man, like an old middle-aged man palate, I would say. I'm just saying.
Hey, Chris, would you like a rattle? Would you like a rattle? Would you like a rattle?
Okay, I'll take a rattle.
Let's see here. Some more sexist nonsense from Greg this time. Big surprise. Joe says you have a baby palate. Journeyman baby palate.
Toddler.
Recorded for bullying.
Toddler
Greg
palate.
says, and toddler palate. But I think we're going to cut off the fucking comments at this point. It would be a good idea.
There you go. All right, I got some scores for you, boys.
Oh, read the scores.
I got the scores. Final scores for style with all of us is an 8.8, which is, it's good. It's good for the style. It is what it is. I mean, it's a West Coast style IPA. It's hoppy as fuck. And
it's a 88 out of 100, isn't it?
Perfect. Yeah, it's a perfect 88 out of 100. And for overall, because I fucking dropped that shit down all the way, it's at 7.7 for a overall
Still pretty.
That's totally on you.
It's totally on this guy.
8.8 and
my taller palate.
That's still pretty respectable.
You know what? I was actually thinking something while you were talking about West Coast and East Coast, like comparing this to East Coast IPAs. It's almost like East Coast is kind of, think about West Coast IPAs and East Coast IPAs. Like, how's this thought come across? Like, maybe it's like an arms race, and now the technological advantage is back on the East Coast, where it used to be West Coast for a while. Now that you've got these delicious New England IPAs, the turbid, juicy stuff that is so absolutely amazing. Now West Coast IPAs kind of pales in comparison to it, and I wonder what I'm kind of excited for to see what the next revolution is going to be over in the West.
Okay, so next week's beer.
IPA.
Oh fuck! The next week's beer, I don't have it on me, but next week's beer,
Rebel IPA, isn't it?
No, we're doing Goose Island's IPA.
Goose Island's IPA.
Oh, geez, I almost showed 2 weeks from now's beer. How unprofessional of me.
Yeah.
Great, we get to do another IPA. Yay!
Yep, you're welcome.
Awesome.
That's not number 5.
Do I
would
show a
love
can of it? I've got a can of it if people want to see it.
Yes.
Yeah, you want to pull it out?
All right, here we
whip
go.
Whip it out, Greg.
Walking over.
This is your chance,
Greg, to whip out it. We're getting Greg to whip out his goose.
Okay. Here.
Before you whip it out, you have to say the quote. Excuse me while I whip this out.
Excuse me while I pull out my honker.
There we go. Close enough.
That sounds like a great time to take your honker out. Well, anyway, any last comments in it?
Well, Average Joe says Goose Island IPA for fuck's sakes. And then he says at least Peter can join.
Yeah, well, that's part of the point.
Molson Canadians next.
Molson, yeah, well, you know what? I would like to do Molson Canadian some point soon, but even if it pisses off Greg.
Well, there's the fact that Molson Canadian now has their Olympic special fucking 750 ml bottle.
Yeah, the one with the foil top.
Since we're in the foil top, since we're in the Olympic season, you know, it might not be that bad of an idea.
No, I wish Molson still made that fucking 17 whatever malt liquor that they had there for a little while. That would have been a fun one to do an examine on.
That's fucking delicious.
Labels out.
Oh yeah, we have to do Colt 45 as well.
Yeah, we should do a Colt 45 at some point.
Yeah,
I get in cans now, baby.
Yeah, Average Joe says, did somebody say Olympics live stream on Nick's channel? I don't think so. Nobody spoiled my channel with curling.
Yeah, right.
Not that I don't mind curling. I like curling and all, but anyway,
so that pretty much wraps up our show, right, Nick?
Yeah, that pretty much wraps up our show. We're going to be going online later, unless, like, for some reason Chad's not at work and he's going online. But otherwise, we're going online in a bit and cutting this thing down. So I want to thank everybody in the chat for watching. Stay tuned to us next week. We're going to take a look at Goose Island's IPA. We've got plenty more weeks of this planned, and I hope you enjoy it. And thank you guys for being on the panel, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
So, Nick, you want me
free Olympic streams on Nick's channel?
What?
Oh, steal the thumbnail.
One second. What? Yeah, Greg, you want me to pour this back in the can so I can send it to you?
Yeah, please. Just put duct tape over it. It'll be just fine.
All right.